Right, so I could give you a value of one of these. So I could give you, okay, well, sine of 30 equals to 1/2. What else is going to equal to that? Okay, and it'll just be the angle that is complementary to it. So if it's 30, well, what adds up to 90 with 30? 60. So you would just change that sine to a cosine. Okay. All right. Another thing that I do want you to notice is looking at the tangents. If you look at the tangents, you're going to notice that they are reciprocals of each other. What reciprocals mean is that they are flipped. Okay. Now, this is really up to you, but this is also kind of useful, well, at least where you're solving. If you are having trouble with some of your angles, like this whole thing is useful, because if you notice, there were some questions last time that were easier than others. So let me kind of go back and look at this one. So let's just say if you were doing number 13, you saw that x was in the denominator, and you were like, oh man, these are one of those questions where I have to, I have to multiply, and then after that I have to divide. So maybe that's like a difficult question, so maybe I don't really want to do that right there. You can also go ahead and find... All right, so if you were looking at number 13 and you see that we're doing tangent of 60, right? And you're like, well, I don't really want to do all that work. That was a lot, the division, the multiplication, all of that. You could also do tangent of its complementary. So what is complementary to 60? Well, 30. So I can do tangent. And here, let me do it in a different color. And you can add this into your notes if you want this trick. And if you don't, and you're like, this is fine, this is doable for me, then don't worry about it. But this one, if I want to do tangent of 30, well, the 30 degrees is this one right here. Okay, so what that 30 does, okay, is essentially what's changing places is now this right here is going to be opposite, and this right here is actually adjacent. So when I'm writing this down, you're going to see that that O goes at the top, so x over 100. So if you notice, what's the difference in between these two? They just switch. So instead of this one is 100 over x, this one's x over 100. And then you would just do the work exactly the same. So multiply by 100. Multiply by 100 over here. And when you put this in your calculator, you would get the exact same answer, 57.74. Okay? So 2 different ways of doing your question. Really, this one, what the only work that's extra is that you found that angle right here, and then you started working, just in case you don't want to do all of this work right here. And again, that only works with tangent. Tangent is inverse. Okay? All right, let me go through another question that you're going to see. So this one, given sine of b equals to 5 over 13, draw a right triangle ABC with right angle C and label the side lengths. So let's go ahead and just make sure we kind of remember. We have some old hobo caught another hobo taking out acid, or SOHCAHTOA, whichever way you're going to memorize it. Okay? Sorry. My baby's making noises in the background. So if I look at this one, first we're going to draw a right triangle. So when I draw a right triangle, it tells us where the right angle is, right angle C. So I'm going to label this one, and I know my right angle is C, so that one's going to go there. And A and B can just go anywhere. So I'm just going to put A here and B here. Does not matter where you place them. Now, if I look at the information that they gave me, they said sine of B. So they're doing everything with respect to that angle B. Okay, so that's the angle that we're working with. And then if you know sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So when I label everything, remember that this right here has to do with opposite and hypotenuse. So let's just work this question like we normally do, okay? We're going to start by labeling our sides. So this side right here, AB, is our hypotenuse. So we're going to put an H right there. If the B is the angle that we're looking at, the side opposite to B is this side right here. So that's where I'm going to put my O. And adjacent, remember, means next to. There's 2 sides next to it, but this one's the hypotenuse. So this one right here is going to be the adjacent. Now, they already gave us some values for the side lengths with this 5 over 13 right here. So we can use that sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Then opposite is this top number, which is 5. Hypotenuse is this 13. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So right there where we have 15, or that 5, I'm sorry, that one is opposite. So right there where you have the O label, you're going to put a 5. Okay, your hypotenuse goes at the bottom. That's that 13. So right there where you have H, you're going to put 13. So this question is asking you to determine the length of the missing side. So we have this X right here. Now, there's a whole bunch of different ways of doing this right here. So I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But if I was looking at finding that missing side, you could either use trig, you could use, you could use Pythagorean theorem if you wanted to. Those are really the main two that I would do. So if I was using Pythagorean theorem, you could have said, okay, well, A, B, and C. So if I was doing Pythagorean theorem, and I'll write both ways right here, oops, so you can see both and you can decide which one you want to do. C squared equals to A squared plus B squared. So I could have done 13 squared equals to 5 squared plus B squared, and then solve it. Okay, you could have done it this way. Or if you really wanted to, you could use trig. Okay, now with trig, we have a lot of options. Remember, one of them has to have an A in it. So I could use cosine or I can use tangent because they both have A's in it. Okay, now if I had to pick one of them, I'm going to pick the one that doesn't have the X at the bottom. So I'm going to use cosine. So if I was using cosine, and look at that. That's actually what B tells us to do. If I was using cosine, I would say cosine of this B, right, equals to, what is it? Adjacent, which is 5. Oh, I'm sorry, adjacent, which is X, over hypotenuse, which is 13. Now, here's a problem with this one and why it's a little tricky and why it's kind of difficult that I can't really use this method yet. You do not have an angle, okay? We just know that angle as B. Now, if you really wanted to find this angle, what you could do, is you could go in and do the inverse sine because they gave you the ratio. So you could put sine -1, 5 over 13 in your calculator, and that would give you what angle B is, okay? So, again, a lot of different ways of doing this question. I could put cosine and then instead of B, write that answer that you get right here, and then solve for that X, okay? So 2 different ways of doing it. Hopefully I'm going to give you the opportunity to practice both ways and you can figure out your answer for both of them. And I'll write the answer. So pause, figure out which one you want to do, and try it. Now, if you're looking at this and you're just like, whoa, wait, what is she talking about? This is actually my mistake, what we're going to learn next, okay? So this right here is called inverse sine, and this is going to be helpful for questions like this where you do not have the angle and you want to find the angle, okay? So we're going to come back to this one. But for right now, I know how to do Pythagorean theorem, so I can do this right here. And if I did this, well, I would do -5 squared on both sides. And when I do that, I get B squared equals 2. And you would put this right here in your calculator. When you do that, you get 144. To solve for B, you would go ahead and square root both sides, and your B is 12. So I found the missing side, 12, by doing this right here, okay? Now, if I was looking at determining what cosine of B was, well, now I figured out what that 12 was, and you could substitute it in. But I will be teaching you this method right now, okay? Now, this is useful, like I said, in this one. And I know when I started writing it down, I didn't even realize that we hadn't even gone over it yet. This inverse sine is figuring out how to get your angles. So go ahead and take your foldable out. And I want you to copy this down on that other side, on that other fold, okay? Now, to find missing angles, you do this right here, and this is what's called inverse sine. So with this right here, it looks the same, except you have those -1s right there, okay? Now, really, what's different about these when it comes to calculating is not much. When you look at your calculator, though, here, let me pull it up, okay? There we go. All right. When you pull up your calculator, there's just a couple of things that you're going to notice. So the first thing is they're not here. Okay. These right here are normal, cosine, sine. So you're going to have to press this button right here that says function, and you will see them appear there. Okay. And I'll put them on the screen in a second. The other thing that I do want to mention to you as well is, remember, your calculator has to be in degree mode. It is something that I will remind you over and over again. Put your calculator in degree mode. Okay. Now, when you click that function, button, let me show you what it's going to look like. So when you click that function button, you will see your buttons, these right here. And when you press one of them, I'll show you what it's going to look like in your calculations when we start working on these questions, okay? All right, so the only difference between this one and what we are used to doing is in the parentheses, usually you would have your angle. Now inside the parentheses, you're going to have those sides. So, O over H is going to be for this sine, inverse sine. A over H is inverse cosine. And O over A is inverse tangent. All right, so open up your foldable, and I'm just going to kind of show you how to do these questions, okay? So for these questions right here, it's going to be basically the same thing that we've been working on, okay? So I'm going to go through this really fast. So you would mark up your angle. You're going to go ahead and just mark up the sides, H, O, and A. Remember, H stands for hypotenuse. O stands for opposite, so right in front of. So look at the angle, and then look at what's in front of it, this side AB, and adjacent means next to. So look at this angle, what's next to it, this right here. Okay, now for inverse sine, okay, you're going to have sine. You're going to write that -1, and in the parentheses is going to be your O over H, okay? And that's going to help you get that angle right there. Remember, that's what theta stands for. Theta stands for an angle. So let me show you how it's going to look like on your actual questions with numbers, okay? So you're going to mark up your angle, mark up your sides with H, O, and A, and it's going to be sine -1. And sorry, dropped my -1 for some reason. So sine -1. And then you're going to have O, so square root of 3, divided by H, which is 2, and that's going to equal to your theta. This right here is what you're going to put in your calculator, okay? Cosine, same thing, cosine -1 equals to, or A over H, sorry, equals to your theta. So when you do your actual questions, and let me label everything, you have your O and your A like this. Your cosine -1, so cosine -1, and then in the parentheses, instead of putting your angle, you're putting your sides. So this one would be A, so A is 1, divided by your H, which is 2. And that's going to give you your theta. All right, tangent is the same. So go to tangent. Whoops, tangent. So again, you have your angles, you have your sides. Go ahead and label those really quick. O, A. Now tangent, in the parentheses, like I said, because it's inverse, it's pretty much like the ones that we've been doing, except the positions are flipped. Now instead of the angle being in the parentheses, the sides are in the parentheses. So this one is O over A, and that gives us our angle, theta. So tangent of O, which is 4, over A, which is 3, equals to that angle right there. So this is what you're putting in your calculator to figure out this question. So let's write out the steps. So to do these type of questions, and we're going to do this example together before, I'm just going to let you do these right here. If you have any questions about any of them that are missing an angle, those are the easiest ones. Really, the only way that you're going to get those wrong is either A, you labeled something wrong, B, you picked the wrong trig ratio, or C, you put it in your calculator incorrectly, or maybe you left it in radian mode instead of changing it to degree mode. So let me show you how to do these questions. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to identify your missing angle, and you're going to label your sides. The labels, remember, are H, O, and A. We did this on last class, so hopefully you should have your notes from last class already finished. If you didn't, you should go back and do your notes from last class, okay? So you're going to go ahead and identify your angle. So your angle is this angle right here. And then you're going to label your sides. So the first side is the hypotenuse. So the hypotenuse is the one right across the 90. Remember, opposite means in front of. So what side is in front of that x? Well, the 9. And adjacent means right next to. So the two sides next to that x are this side right here and that 21. Well, this side's already taken by the h, so this one right here is going to be your adjacent. Okay? So step number 2 is to pick your trig ratio. So just like before, we have this shorthand. So, ka, to, or some old hobo caught another hobo taking out acid, whichever way you remember it. So the two sides that we have are that 9 and 21, which is O and A. Okay, so we're going to be using tangent. Step number 3 is that you're going to set up and calculate. Notice I didn't put solve because there's really nothing to solve for this one. You really are just going to be putting it in your calculator. Okay, so because I'm using tangent, okay, now this is where I don't want you to see this and be like, oh, we're doing what we did last time, tangent of, and then parentheses, you're going to put that angle, and then no. Look at what you're missing. I'm missing an angle. So if I'm missing an angle, that means you have to use inverse tangent. So put that -1. And because it's inverse, inside the parentheses is not the angle, it's the sides. So you're going to put O over A. So O is 9. And A is 21. So 9 over 21 equals 2, and then your x. That's what you're putting in your calculator. Okay, this right here. So let me just go ahead and pull up what it's going to look like when you put it into your calculator really quick. And actually, I'll do that for the next questions, okay? So when you put that tangent -1 over 9 over 21, that's going to give you an answer of 23.20, okay? See if you can try it in your calculator right now if you're able to do that. I'm going to put the next questions on there in your calculator, so I am just skipping this one just for time's sake, okay? But that would be how you're going to do these questions, okay? So let me do one with you, and then I'm going to be asking you to answer the rest of them by yourself. So let's do number 5 together. So same thing. Go ahead and identify your angle. Then you're going to label your sides. I always start with the hypotenuse. So remember the hypotenuse across from that 90-degree angle, so that's 16. And then you have your opposite. So opposite means in front of. So of these two sides, or three sides, which one is in front of that x? Well, in front would be right here. So right there's your O. Remember, adjacent means next to. So the two sides that are next to that x are the 16 and this blank one right here. Well, they are both next to it, but this 16 is already your hypotenuse, so this one right here must be your adjacent. Now you're going to pick your trig ratio. So let me just write those down. So Katoa, right there. Or some old hobo caught another hobo taking out acid. So for this one, the two numbers that I have are 9 and 16, which is O and H. So the one that has O and H is sine. And remember, we're looking for an angle, so we're using inverse sine. So sine, -1. And in the parentheses, you put the sides. So you put O over H in there. So O is 9. Your H is 16. Equals to that X. That right there is what you're going to put in your calculator. So X equals 2. And that's what you're putting in your calculator. Let me go ahead and show you what it looks like. All right. In our calculator. And I do have the last question right there too. But in your calculator, this is how you would put it. Sine -1, 9 over 16 like this. Okay. And that would give you your answer, which is 34.23 degrees because you're finding an angle. Okay. All right. Try number 6 on your own. All right. For number 6, we're going to go ahead and find this angle right here. So identify that angle. Label your sides. So H, O, A. The two sides that I have are this 5.1 and this 3.8, which are A and H. So when you're looking at your trig ratios, you want the one that has an A and an H, which is cosine. So we are using cosine. We are looking for a missing angle. So remember, that's inverse cosine. And in the parentheses are the sides. So A divided by H. So A is 3.8 divided by H, which is 5.1. All right, equals 2. And then the angle you're missing, which is X. All right, this right here is what you're putting in your calculator. So when I put cosine, when I put cosine -1, 3.8 over 5.1, it's going to look like this, which is 41.83. Okay? Degrees. All right. Try the next one. All right, for this next one, we have X right here. Go ahead and label your side. So H. Opposite means in front of, so this one's in front. And then adjacent means next to. So the two sides next to it are this side right here and this side. This side's already H, so that means that this side must be my adjacent. Now, go ahead and look at what you have to determine what trig ratio you're going to use. So for this one, I have that 12, and that's H, and I have that 8, which is an A. So H and A, if I go look, H and A is cosine. So we have cosine. Because you're looking for an angle, you're going to be using the inverse. And then it would be A divided by H. So your A is 8. Your H is 12. Equals 2x. This right here is what you're popping into your calculator. So x equals to 48.19 degrees. Again, I'll go ahead and show you what that looked like when you put it in your calculator real quick. All right, there it is. Cosine -1, 8 over 12. And that's how I got that answer right there. It was 189, so it was 18, but I rounded up because that 9 made that 18 go up to 19. Okay. All right, try the next one. Number 9, try number 9. All right, for this one, again, identify your angle. Your side is H. The side opposite to it would be 11. This side right here would be adjacent. So if I'm deciding which one we're going to use, let me just write those at the top again, so I can have them as we're working. For this one, it would be 22, which is A, and 11, which is O. So A and O is going to be tangent. So inverse tangent, and it's O divided by A, so 11 divided by 22 equals to X. Pop that in your calculator. This is number 9. Pop that in your calculator, and it's going to look like this. 26.565. So 26.565, so 56.5, it rounds up to 57 degrees. All right. Try the next one, number 11. All right, number 11, we have this right here. Start by labeling our sides. This would be our H. This side is O. This one's A. The things that we have are that 25 and that 23, which is O and H. Looking at our trig ratios, O and H is sine. We're looking for an angle, so you're going to do inverse sine. So sine -1. O, 23 over H, which is 25, equals to X. Pop that in your calculator. When you put it in your calculator, it looks like this, 66.93 degrees. And I'll show you what it looked like when you put it in your calculator, so you can check if you did it incorrectly. Let's see, this would be number 11.